talking about revising your essay for content. Going through an essay that you've written in order to make substantive content improvements can be a daunting task. Fortunately, there are some basic principles that you can apply to whip your essay into shape. Admit it, whenever your teacher says you have to revise an essay, usually go back, run spell check, and then call it a day, right? It's pretty easy to edit an essay you've written when all you have to do is check for problems with your spelling, grammar, and punctuation. But that's not what this is about. However, don't feel hopeless. With a few basic principles in mind, you can learn how to go back through an essay and make substantive edits that sharpen and improve the content of your essay. Like I said, it can be hard, but this is not just fixing spelling mistakes. This is fixing the content of your essay. So, let's start out with the first step. Step 1 is the purpose. Most essays will have one of three basic purposes: to inform or describe, to persuade, or to entertain. As you review an essay that you've written, ask yourself whether or not your purpose is clear. If it's not, then you know there's a content problem. A fairly common problem that many students run into is discovering that after writing what should have been a persuasive essay, they have instead written more of an informative or descriptive paper. Often, a writer might lay out data and evidence in favor of a particular position, but you might actually fail to make arguments. You need to go back and see if your purpose is clear. The next step is seeing if you have a clear thesis statement. As you may know, your thesis statement is the sentence or two that communicates the main point of your essay. It usually appears in your first paragraph, and it's often the last sentence in that paragraph. If, when going back through your essay, you discover that you don't really have a thesis statement, you need to put one in there. Just be sure now to develop and add one. If you're in a time crunch, you may be able to do this by re-examining your essay question and thinking about the major points you've made. If you have a few sentences in your introduction, maybe you can find one that might become a thesis and make some tweaks to that to make it be a thesis. It might actually be good to do lots of editing in your introductory paragraph after you've already written your essay. Just make sure that you have that thesis statement. Your next step is going back and seeing your main points of your essay. Do you have good main points? As you read back through the body paragraphs of your essay, quickly check each one and ask yourself whether it has a clear main point. Does that main point support your thesis? You can ask yourself this: what question is this paragraph answering? If you can't answer that about every paragraph, then that paragraph needs revising. You need to go back and make sure that that paragraph is in line with the main point of your essay. Your next step is revising the details. Have you included sufficient details? It's very important that every paragraph has some details. It's great if your essay has details, but you need to make sure that they're very, very specific. Do they prove your point? Our next step is going to be organization. Is your essay well organized? Organization might be the toughest thing to check. However, it's really very important. So, one thing you could go through and do is, if you haven't written an outline, go through and write an outline after you've written your paper. Just do a quick list of the points you've made. Does the order of these points make sense? Do they connect well to each other? For example, if you've explained the process of how climate change occurs, have you skipped any steps that need to be filled in? Pay attention also to repetitiveness. Perhaps you've written a paper that has too many repetitions. You need to go back and see if all your points make sense with each other. In summary, make sure of these things in your essay. Your purpose is to be clear. Your thesis statement needs to be effective and clear. Your main ideas are on point with your thesis. There are sufficient details to support your major points, and your points are organized well.